Pez, is that the Pez formerly of Operation Goldfish, currently of Symphony? Is that who the bigger Pez is? Yes. Yo! How have you been, Pez? You were one of the more... when I used to hang out with Operation Goldfish, I remember you as one of the more annoying ones on that team. Weren't you the one who always called me Grandpa or something? That was you, wasn't it? I know it was you. You've been great. Good. Morning, almost afternoon. Well, I've been, it's pretty much morning for me. I mean, it's noon. It's fixing to be noon where I'm at. And, I mean, I write these things I write these things before I go to bed, for the most part. And then I just wake up and shave and go on and do this, so. This is pretty much morning for me. Wow, Dino Lizard coming in right off the bat, trying to start a conversation. Let's see. SAC needs to be open to more people because right now it's just low ink 2, where teams that have won low ink can play. It's a DLC basically. I don't know. Depends on what your definition of a SAC should be. Oh, I guess I'll kind of discuss that in my notes today. Xylo with the hot takes right off the bat. Yeah, I'm just sitting here trying to... This is just the warm-up. I'm just trying to enjoy some water. Wake up. Get some music. And Dino Lizard coming in here demanding SAC change. Their eligibility requirements, I guess. I like it. I like it. Hello, OO gang. Starting fire before Cali. No, I don't. They're not starting fire. I feel like that's a. I feel like that's a take a lot of people have, honestly. I think that says, honestly, I think that says more about. I think that says more about low ink than SAC, honestly. The type of teams the low ink is letting in versus who SAC is letting in. We'll get into that. How do you pronounce your name, by the way? Is it Segus? Segus? Seguys? Oh, excuse me. Any of them is fine. No, there is a there is an actual pronunciation. This is what Leo or Leon of Xanadu does that crap too. Oh, you just call me whatever you want. No, you have a name that you want. What is your name? Tell us what your name is. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Leo, but people take that little sign at the end of it to be an N, so they call him Leon. But like I asked him straight up, was like, do you prefer to be called Leo or Leon? It's like, no, that's not it. That doesn't answer the question. Siegs? Siegs? Alright. Most people use Seagus. Segways. Seagull. Alright, Siegs. Siegs it is. There's a guy on our team called Zonink, and I think I've said the word Zonink maybe 5 times, and 2 of them were just now recorded, so we usually just call him Z. Segs works, I guess. That works. Segs the eggs. What, you egg? Alright. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, while you are storming the nation's capital like the terrorists that you are, celebrating the Cleveland Browns' first playoff win since 1994, asking me to give you a shout out on the Popcast in the middle of the set that you are playing against my team. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. Quick news update before we get into the topics of today. Ash Cup 7 got announced. These guys like to just randomly announce their tournament with no build up at all. It's just, hey, it's happening in 2 weeks. Come sign up for it. Which is what it is. Ash Cup is a tournament I like to cover on the podcast. Obviously, I think it's a great tournament. So I want to give them recognition whenever they do things, but here you go. We assumed it was going to be this month because it's a bi-monthly tournament, and I guess they finally decided a date and announced it. So Ash Cup 7 is going to be January the 24th. That is, once again, a Sunday. They liked it so much the first time, they decided to go back to it again. Maybe got forced into doing Sunday. I feel like every Saturday this month is booked with something. Except for this weekend, there's nothing on the 16th, right? Or is that when Nine's $10,000 or something tournament is? I know Nine's doing like a huge tournament. I feel like that's this upcoming weekend. I'm not totally sure. I feel like there's something big. Nine's is on the 23rd. Well, okay. Well, something else is on the 23rd too. I think Ink Theory is on the 23rd. And there has to be Good Ideas only on the 16th. I don't stop. And of course, there's JPEG's fastest tourney in the West. I think that might be on the 16th too, for all I know. So Nines is on the 23rd. Okay, 23rd is gonna be like a gazillion different tournaments because somebody's constantly DMing me about like these like weird pop-up tournaments that I don't really trust until they've run a few times. I think one of them. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. But I don't know. The point is, Ash Cup is on the 24th. I won't post a link in chat. I'll try to post a link in the description of the YouTube, mainly because I don't have it ready. I'll probably post it more next week. It is a couple of weeks out, but make sure you sign up for Ash Cup. It's a nice lower level tournament. It's important. And you guys like playing tournaments on Sundays, as is evident by the support all the Sunday tournaments have gotten from you guys. Today, we are going to be discussing the trend of teams disbanding from last week, why this seems to happen, and what does this say about our community? Spoiler alert, the community is dead. And this is the final episode of the Popcast because nobody pays attention to Splatoon anymore. So, GG's, everybody. All of this coming up right after our first topic today, which is going to be the SAC opener. So this is awkward. We're not going to be covering the SAC opener in the same way that we cover other tournaments here on the podcast. For a variety of reasons that I'm about to get into. First and foremost, my team plays in SAC, and it would be really weird to talk about in depth a tournament that a lot of teams play in all at the same time, avoiding talking about my own team. This podcast isn't meant to be a propaganda for Destiny troops. Whenever I talk about my team, it's usually just as like a reference to something. So I'm not going to just sit here and be like, Destiny troops won silver bracket. Way to go, guys. That's weird. Or talk about like we get upset by somebody or something like that. That'd be weird. So I didn't look at the game specifically. And also, I'm not going to like play a game in the set, and then when that set's done, I'm going to be looking around and be like, ooh, Enigma took a game off of somebody. I'm going to make sure to mention that. Like, no, that's weird. I got to focus on the task in front of me, not what's going on specifically across the tournament as a whole per game. We will talk about the tournament in particular, but the actual per game stuff, no. Another reason, SAC has its own podcast. Sometimes. I don't know if they still do it or not. They did one officially to start off the season. But I don't know if they're going to do one like after each tournament or anything like that. They did in the past season. So if I would leave more of that kind of stuff to them, we're going to do more. Stay tuned for details. Well, here you go. You hear it from the horses, straight from the horse's mouth, Roundy himself. So there you go. I would leave most of the SAC stuff to them. Now, I will still look at the actual games in the tournament as far as my low ink preview is concerned. When I do my top 10 for low inks, I look at tournaments outside of just where I don't just look at low ink and be like, oh, this team finished second, so they're number 1 and 3 is 2. No, I look at everything you guys do. And the more tournaments you guys do, usually the higher I rank you, unless you just flat out suck in a tournament. Maybe that hurts you. I don't know. But I will look at these. I will go back and look at this tournament in a game matchup situations later on, as far as rankings for my low ink top 10 are concerned. And I mean, I'll have to. I do verification for low ink anyway, so I'll have to look at it anyways, for standard. And it just the full disclaimer: if you beat my team in SAC, that doesn't mean you're banned from low ink. I'm not. I separate the player from the verifier, in those kind of instances. So don't be tripping about that. Not that I've seen anybody do that, but It is what it is. First things, let's talk about a few things. As far as this tournament is concerned, first off, eligibility. And if you're here for the pre-show, Dino from Xylo just started off firing immediately with SAC is basically just low ink 2 with DLC. Basically, it's just low ink with former champions a part of it. Yeah. Duh. What do you think it was supposed to be? What, we're gonna let Arctic Moon back in or something? Some people thought they legit could just get right back into this SAC. If you look at the eligibility requirements, or I'm sorry, the exemption request channel, doggone near every single one of them got denied. And it's so obvious the people that got denied, because the people that put in requests are ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. You had former graduates from last season asked to get in. You had a team that straight up won last season asked for an eligibility exemption. I don't know if that was like legit or not, but you would assume that's not really a place to meme or joke, because everybody sees that. So I'm assuming everybody that put in a request was serious, because why would you joke about something like that? It makes you, it's borderline embarrassing sometimes. But yeah, I'm not going to call out people by names, and don't do it in chat either. That's not really fair to them. This isn't meant to be like an attack to people in particular, but I mean, the people that asked for an exemption request, like everybody and their mom could just look at that and be like, no, you're not going to be allowed in SAC. And now I've always said when it comes to lowing, it never hurts to ask. It putting in an exemption is fine. Now, some of you ask every single month, right? You ask every single month to get into low ink, and then you get denied, and then you like destroy another tournament, and then you come back next month and ask to get back in. It's like, bruh, I've asked low ink staff. There's this one team in particular that keeps asking, and they're like borderline top 10 in the West. I begged low ink staff that when they asked to get an exemption request for low ink again, that I could just publicly rip them, because it tears what little hair I have left in my head that they keep asking for this when they know darn well they're not even a mid-level team anymore. But moving on. Why are people asking for exemption requests to get into SAC when it's so blatantly obvious there's too good for SAC? Two issues here. Let's look deeper into it other than just calling out people. We know what the problem is. Or we know what a symptom of the problem is. But what is the actual problem here? First off, SAC is a clout maker. If you're successful in SAC, you get a ton of attention from everybody, not just the lower level, but everybody pays attention to SAC. So it is understandable that anybody would want to participate in it, because it gives you attention, and rightfully so. Low ink is kind of the same way. Low ink wasn't always like that. SAC basically came out the gate season 0 as a monster. Low ink has kind of grown to that, and it's debatable about which one is the bigger monster now. But if you just look off of Twitter, I mean, Tassel was going on at the same time as SAC, and most of the tweets I saw, and to be fair, most of the people I follow are lower level, but most of the tweets I saw were pretty even with the amount of tweets that were with Tassel. So SAC will get your team attention if you compete in it and you are successful. People recognize that, and it's understandable that they would want to play in it. Now, is the problem that the these players that want to come back into SAC, is the problem that uh, they want to play in SAC, or is the problem that there's no SAC that's for them? There is no mid-level SAC equivalent. Now you're going to say, but Pop Gun, what about Midway? And Midway is the obvious kind of solution to this. As I burp once again, I make a lot of gross sounds sometimes on the podcast. I apologize for that. My body's exploding. Mid-level has Midway. And Midway is basically run by the vast majority of the people that are running SAC. And they kind of borrow a lot of things from each other. So in a sense, you would think it's kind of the same product. But it's, and also in a way it's not, and mainly because a lot of teams don't play in Midway. Now, I think one of the issues with this current Midway season is that it happened back to back without an SAC to kind of buffer them. So in my mind, I think it should be SAC should happen, and then you get your graduates, and then you move them out, and then all of a sudden you're like, boom, here's a Midway for you to play in. So it's like a natural progression. When Midway was back to back, it was like, okay, we got these new guys through Midway. Let's do Midway again and get another set of players through. But this past Midway, at least the first tournament, seemed more like what I thought an SAC tournament would be than what a Midway tournament would be. So I think going out of order like that kind of hurt this last season. And a lot of teams just don't sign up for Midway. Now, Midway has come out and said, or at least in the first season, they basically had a rule that said, if you're not Div 3 or you can't play to Div 3 skill level, we recommend that you don't sign up for this one. We're not going to prevent anybody from signing up, but if you can't hold your own at Div 3, don't even bother, is basically what they said. And that basically drove away a lot of teams, a lot of lower level teams. Now, is SAC a lower level tournament? I don't know. I consider it like a mid-level, the lower end of mid-level, with a bunch of lower level teams that sign up for it. Are you going to get a lot of those teams to sign up for Midway? No. But when you don't, then your tournament's like 20 to 30 teams. Not a lot of people are going to pay attention to it, especially when there's another lower level tournament going on. When a Midway happens the same time as Low Inc., it gets destroyed as far as viewership is concerned on Twitch. Now, does that mean that Midway is bad? No, but as we're talking about tournaments you guys want to play in, clout makers, that does kind of affect things. So that it's understandable why people want to go back into SAC after they've already graduated, instead of trying to grind and grow like you should be to helping develop mid-level, which is, I've been pointing out several times on the podcast, is a glaring issue. Mid-level needs to be developed. And I feel like it's going to get there after this SAC season. You're going to get a lot of established veteran teams that don't disband, that are going to graduate or just be flat out kicked out of SAC at the end of this season, that are going to be stuck in that mid-level void. And I feel like a lot of us are going to come together and figure out how to save it now that we have no choice but to play in mid-level or disband. So I feel like the future is bright, and that we can create that we can help Midway become like the SAC of mid-level, so that it's something exciting. It's something you want to play in. And then it's like, okay, I don't want to be eligible for SAC, which you shouldn't be. You know, you shouldn't want to be eligible for SAC. You shouldn't want to be eligible for Low Inc. You shouldn't be publicly campaigning that you suck or that you haven't played the game in X amount of months, because that means nothing. I promise you, you could put the game down for a year. I couldn't care less. It doesn't take that long to de-rust. I promise you. But I feel like I lost my train of thought. Mid-level is going to be fine, but for right now, lower level is the king, and that's why people want to come back in. The people asking for eligibility, that's just a symptom of what the actual problem is. So don't hate on those people for asking, even though I kind of just did, but I wanted to explain why. Now, the tournament as a whole this past weekend, I thought it was great. We enjoyed playing in it. We weren't happy with how with our final standing, but as far as like its actual tournament being run as itself is, I thought it was fine. I really liked the time pressure that they put on. One of the issues with low ink, especially in the first round, is that it drags on forever because you got a lot of new teams that don't really know what the heck they're doing, and it takes like 15 minutes to get somebody into a lobby. So SAC was really smart about this, and I really appreciated this. And I feel like some other veteran players appreciated this too. After the first round, they really put their foot down on this time thing. Round 2, my team played Oblivion. I'm already friends with people in Oblivion. They already know my password. So basically, as soon as the match starts on Battlefy, I can just say, "Hey, the room's up," and they can join. And they did. They got in the room in like a minute. We already had the maps up. We got the maps going. We played the games. We didn't we didn't have like any DC issues. We didn't have like give us a 5-minute break to go use the restroom or anything like that. No, we just got the games in. First game was a KO, but it lasted it was like a 4-minute KO, so it basically took the whole game. And the other 2 games were lasted the whole 5 minutes. So basically, our set against Oblivion took the entire, like the games themselves took the entire amount of time, but everything else, like joining the lobby and getting the game started, was about as quick as you could possibly make it. At the end of our last game, a ping came out and said, "You guys got 5 minutes to finish this round." And we're like, whoa, like we were going as fast as you possibly could. And we were even like 5 minutes within like the time limit that they were setting on people. So like, I'm fine with that. Like, you guys should, it blows my mind how long it takes to get people into a lobby. Like, you guys shouldn't be doing solo queue after each round. You shouldn't be doing league sessions after each round. Like, go to the training room or just sit and chill in your private battle lobby and just wait. Like, you don't need to grind your brains out and get mentally exhausted when you're not even playing games. It, like, as soon as your match is up on Battlefy, you should be immediately talking to the other guy, exchanging friend codes. Whoever's the highest seed, you host, or let the highest seed decide who hosts. If they ask you to host and you can do it, like it shouldn't take more than 3 minutes to get somebody in a lobby. It really shouldn't. And SAC was like, "Hey, speed this crap up. Let's get it over with." And I appreciate that. As a participant, I appreciate that. And they didn't do it in round 1. Again, you get 1 round to figure it out if you're new to Battlefy. But after that, come on, sweetheart. Get in the lobby. Let's get these games going. It's not a surprise. So I like that. Set play for grand finals was cool. And it might have been complicated if you've never heard of it before. I've heard of it, but I didn't know exactly how SAC wanted to run it. But it's not that difficult to figure out. And they do a lot of hand holding because I think they realize some of us are morons. And I did kind of break some stuff that Nick had to fix on Battlefy because you report it by sets on Battlefy, not by games. So, but we figured it out, and it's not that difficult. I mean, if you just tell someone it's a best of 3 of a best of 3, in your mind you're like, "Wait, what? What is that? I don't understand that." But once I like it. It adds more strategy and more depth. Anything that takes pressure away from TOs to decide a tournament and put it more so on the players to decide. Like, the players get to decide the modes, they get to decide the maps for the most part. And it allows for more depth of strategy, I think is a good thing. I'll always support something like that. Now, in lower level with counter picks, do teams often shoot themselves in the foot? Yeah. Because they don't realize you don't just pick the map you're good at. You're supposed to pick a map that also like weakens your opponent. And I think a lot of teams is like, well, I'm good at this map, so let's pick this. And then they get KO'd and they're like, well, they beat us here, we're done. But I always like seeing those in lower level tournaments. Regardless, anything that adds strategy for the player to use is, in my opinion, a good thing. Exotic won gold brackets. Avalanche finished second. Bootleg team finished third. Really good tournament for bootleg team. Only losses were to Xanadu and I don't know who knocked them. I guess Avalanche knocked them out in the third place game. So impressive result for them. Exotic, I believe, is the team that rose from the ashes of Saxophone Ducks, or at least a couple of those players I recognize from the Saxophone Duck squad. So Exotic's going to be a good team going forward. We played against them in round 6. We beat them the first game. They came back on us on overtime in the second game, and then the third game they won that one straight up. But for my team personally, I feel like Exotic's pretty good, but I don't feel like they're a team that's like, this isn't going to be Narwhal Gaming second coming, where it's just, let's just hand them the trophy as soon as they sign up, which is basically what we did for a good majority of those tournaments. I feel like there's a lot more parity this time around in this SAC season, which is a good thing. But Exotic winning this one, I think, pretty much guarantees, as long as they sign up for the other tournaments, that they'll find a way into the top 8, which, in my opinion, will be very competitive and exciting. Let's talk about the one thing in this tournament that made no sense to me. And I want to point it out because I feel like some other people were annoyed by this as well. The 2-day thing. Why? I said last week to wait, because when I saw it was a 2-day thing and that day 2 was going to be a single limb, I was like, okay, this is bad. This is really bad. But let's wait and see how it works. Well, you can't complain about something before it actually happens. Let it happen, and let's see how it works in practice, and come to a conclusion after that. So we did. We came to it. I actually played in the Sunday, and it does suck. My hypothesis was correct. You can't do a 2-day tournament with day 2 being single elim, and literally half of your teams that you're bringing back out for a second day are gone in 25 minutes. You can't do that. I'm sorry, you just can't. That's not taking care of your players. Now, another tournament did this last year. You guys might remember. Ink Storm 8 happened. This was a massive tournament. We had to cancel everything we did so that we could all play in Ink Storm 8. We were basically told by all the top TOs, you have to play in this tournament regardless of your skill level. So we did. And we were like, okay. We played in groups. I think most people played like 6 games. Like groups were 7. You played against in those groups, you played against a lot of teams you could absolutely destroy. A lot of teams you had no hope against. But there, 2 teams were right at your skill level, and that was a lot of fun. So Inkstorm 8 Day 1 was great. Inkstorm 8 Day 2 was a joke. It was, now, the top bracket or whatever, like the top 32, was fine. That was great. But for the vast majority of us that were like, why are you forcing us to play in this tournament and canceling everything else that was already going on that weekend? What do you have to incentivize the lower level to come out and play? What did they do? Well, let's make I don't know what they were called, but it was basically a gamma and beta bracket. But it was single elim, and it started at 9 a.m. Pacific time. That was so frustrating. And what happened? A lot of teams dropped on Sunday, right? Low Ink staff basically seeded or basically ran those 2 brackets in Inkstorm 8. And a lot of teams dropped. And why did they drop? Well, It's because they didn't want to wake up their West Coast guy at 8 a.m. local time, have them get up, drink their coffee so that they could play for 15 minutes and get eliminated, and then their tournament's done. Nobody wants to do that. And when you just make a single limb tournament on day 2 like that, it seems more just like an afterthought. Or like oh, well, this will incentivize lower level teams to sign up. Here's a bracket for you. No, it's not. You have to actually provide something more than just a one game knockout. If half of your teams are gone in 20 minutes, that is a bad thing. Now, why does Low Inc do a 2-day system? And I remember when this was first brought up in staff, and I was like, look, I'm 2 days can be fine, but if you're gonna have something, day 2 needs to be something more than just the single limb. It has to be double limb at least. You can't bring your guys out. You're not taking care of your players if they come out for just one match. You're just not. So that's because a lot of issues arise when you do a 2-day thing. Ask Xanadu. Ask Xanadu how they felt about the 2-day system. I haven't seen them publicly tweet anything about that. But here's the thing about Xanadu. Day 1 of the SAC opener, these guys were rolling. I mean, they could not lose a set on Saturday. They played their rounds 2 through 6. I saw them post their things. They lost one game every single time, but they always won 2. So they went to like a game 3. I'm assuming a game 3 where everything was on the line, and they won 5 straight times. If Top Cut happens as soon as Swiss ended, which it should have, because Swiss was going quickly because SAC staff were on top of the time constraint, I think Xanadu wins the opener. I don't think they lose the day-old sushi. The problem is you have this team get all this hotness, all this heat built up, and then you just pull the plug and say, come back tomorrow in a do or die match. And what happened? Xanadu, as the set was starting, was trying to get a sub, and they ultimately, from what I saw in Help Desk, they ultimately brought in Wiltsey, which is a strong player, a smart player, one who I have a lot of respect for because I played against them several times, but is retired, and who knows when the last time Wiltsey touched a foil flingza was. Or a junior. So they basically had to bring a player out of retirement just to play in the opener. And lo and behold, they lose to Day Old Sushi, which, no, not to take anything away from Day Old Sushi. They're an old team, an established team, and one of the more mentally tough teams that we have in lower level, but they have no business beating Xanadu. I'm sorry. Maybe I haven't seen the VOD of the set. Maybe Sigurd just flat out spanked him, for all I know. But I'll tell you this, Xanadu, I wouldn't say Xanadu got screwed, because that we knew going into it that it was going to be a 2-day thing. But if this was a 1-day thing, I think Xanadu wins this tournament. Or they at least beat Day Old Sushi and get to the 3rd place match at worst. Now, I can't confirm this, but I have seen this happen in other conversations, and I'm curious if this was the case, is that somebody came in representing Tassel and was like, hey guys, Tassel is going on the same time as your tournament. Could you possibly make it so that your tournament doesn't cover up all of Tassel? Like maybe make it a 2-day thing, like push your Top Cut back so that we can get more views for Tassel. I can't confirm that, and I don't want to spread speculation, but I have seen those kinds of conversations happen before. And if that really was the case, that sucks. That sucks so bad. That's like you're a youth baseball player. You play in Little League, and then somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, sorry, the Chicago Cubs are playing a nationally broadcast game today, so we're gonna have you your guys' game is gonna have to be canceled or postponed till tomorrow's because we want you guys to watch the Cubs play on national TV." It's like, oh gosh, you got to take care of your players. I hate to be critical of SAC. They did a really good job, and I don't think tournaments going forward are going to be the 2-day system. But this was just disappointing. And I know somebody said, well, they did 2-day last season. It made sense to do it last season. They did a 4-hour ladder on day 1, and day 2, I know there was a gold and a silver. I want to say there was a bronze bracket, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But they did have multiple double elim brackets, so it made sense to play on day 2. This one was a 1-day tournament that was dragged out for seemingly no reason. And I'm being critical of SAC, I know, but more so, this is a warning to other tournament organizations going forward. If you're going to do a day 2, you need to take care of your players. If you're going to force them to deal with the stress of having to get everybody woken up 2 days in a row to make sure you have players that are available for a whole weekend and not just 1 day, you need to make it something that's worth their while. Single elimination does not get the job done. But once again, I thought the tournament was great. SAC does a good job, and that is all I'm going to say on that tournament. Congratulations to Exotic for winning this one. And no, the team that I played that asked if I was going to mention you on the Popcast in the middle of the set. No, I'm not GG's, but I'm not focused on that in the middle of the set. The last thing I want to do is think about something other than just trying to win the game in the middle of the set. Day 2, but the first round is determined by coin flip. Who are you, JPEG? I don't think JPEG's in this chat. Who told you that? Day 2 was double limb last season, yeah. Gotta love when lower level tournaments get a run over like this. Look, we all have to make adjustments. There's a lot of tournaments going on right now across the entire spectrum of skill level in this community. We have to adjust somewhat, but if your adjustment is completely screwing over your own players that are choosing to play in your tournament over something else, that's not good. In a sense. But I mean, we all have to make adjustments. The 2-day system I thought would have been fine. If it was double, I probably wouldn't be complaining as much as I am, but life goes on. Moving on. You asked for a drip pick mid-set. Yeah, that's not like what? Just get the games over with. What do you mean? Why are you focused on doing drip picks in the middle of a set? Like get your counter picks in. We'll go from there. No, not taking drip picks. I'm sitting here thinking in grand finals if I'm gonna win and be like, oh wait a minute. What if we do a drip pick after this? Yes. Yes, that's a good mindset to go into that. Let's talk about teams disbanding. And I'm going to list off a list of teams that disbanded last week, and I feel like I'm missing some because a lot did disband. But let me try to get all of them here. First off, Ascension / In Control. Somebody was like, isn't In Control and Ascension 2 different teams? No, Ascension is the team. In Control is the sponsor of that team. So In Control isn't gone as an organization, just the team that was representing them is. Citrus bit the dust. Inked Dragons went away. Ink Fluency. This was a surprise. First, Ink Fluency dropped the ink and just became Fluency. Now they just dropped the Fluency and became nothing. Resistance, Persistence. Neither team could go the distance. And lastly, Valhalla didn't disband, but after SAC, I saw that WUG announced that they were retiring from competitive. So Turd taking over as captain of that team. But all of this happened basically this week, roughly. Persistence disbanded a couple of weeks ago, and I failed to give them a shout out last week. But yeah, a lot of teams disbanded this week. First off, Citrus is a team that I think went under a lot of people's radars, but I caught it. I caught Persistence disbanding. And I want to give them a quick shout out because I feel bad because Persistence is a team that a lot of people might not know about, but they're a team that has been around for a long time in the lower level community. But I don't get to talk about them much on the podcast because they didn't do anything. I feel like I gave them like a winner roll one or a few times for how they did in a bracket or something, but they never really did anything that caught my attention. And that sucks because it's Citrus. Yes. It sucks because I can't catch everything you guys do. I try to get everything. And the point of this podcast is to give attention to things going on in the lower level. And there's a lot of teams that have been in a lot of low inks that I probably have never even said their name once. And it sucks. But they've probably done, Citrus has probably done something that is worthy of all of our attention. It just goes undone or unnoticed, and then especially by me. So when a team like this disbands, I feel bad because I feel like I didn't give them enough attention for something they might have done. So I went back and looked at what Citrus has done the last two lowings. Last month they went 3-3 in December. Now remember, December lowing going 3-3 was really impressive. We're talking about Citrus. We're talking about Citrus. Going 3-3 was really impressive last month. The last time Citrus played in low ink was in October before the December one, and they made Gamma bracket and doing decently well. I believe they won round 1, lost the Tooniverse in round 2, and then lost in the losers final. So Citrus, I'm sorry you guys. I'm sure you guys have been around for a long time. I just didn't give you guys enough credit. I didn't appreciate you when I had you, but now that you're gone, ain't that just how life works? Inked Dragons have been a team for a long time. In fact, I think I remember playing the Inked Dragons back in like 2019, if I were to look through my book here. A long time. Their biggest claim to fame, at least as far as I've talked about them on the podcast, was that matchup against ITAP in the September Beta Bracket Grand Finals. One that was decided to be the second best match of the entire year as far as the lower level is concerned, based on the Popcast year-end awards, as voted by you guys and me. So Inked Dragons disbanding kind of sucks as well. Inked Dragons being a longer, more established team, them disbanding sucks more than some of these other teams that just kind of pop up out of nowhere and then disband a month later. And I just thought of something I need to write down. Persistence. I'm actually talking about Persistence now. Do I need to say anything about Persistence? I've always said, as far as low ink is concerned, these guys had the biggest target on their back over anybody that played in low ink. And I felt like that pressure kind of got to them at times. But Persistence, I mean, what can I say about them that hasn't already been said? Stormy was the captain of the year last year. Persistence was the number 3 team of the year as far as the Popcast was concerned. They were just a good team, and I guess the writing was kind of on the wall. I think some of us saw this coming, just because they were losing players basically every single week, and they couldn't keep reloading. So it sucks to see Persistence go the most of all of these teams as far as I'm concerned, because I feel like they had the most history. Here's what well, I'll get to that later, but and this doesn't include obviously Splatter Swim disbanding. I think about a month ago, the Ravenous Raccoons disbanding and then teasing us with a pickup team in Low Ink that did really well and won beta bracket, but no, they're actually straight up disbanding. So it's like, oh, sucks. Why do teams disband at the lower level? I haven't talked to these teams in particular to ask them their particular story. That's none of my business. It's not my story to tell for them. It's their story. They get to talk about it however they feel like they want to. Here's a few things I've noticed, though, just by kind of paying attention to lower level for the vast majority of time that I have. One of the reasons teams disband is that sometimes there's one player that is clearly like head and shoulders above the rest of the players on this team. I'm not going to give specific examples, but there's a lot of players that are like, okay, we didn't know who they were, but since they joined this team and they're getting like 20 KAs every single game, it's like, oh wow, this guy's pretty good. Why are they on this team? And it's probably because they were friends at some point, or probably still are friends, but afterwards it's like, okay, that player eventually decides to just leave. They're like, I'm tired of being on this. I'm tired of losing. I'm going to go somewhere else and climb the ladder that way. We've seen this happen countless times. And we've seen a lot of players come from the lower level and then just absolutely immediately jump up to like the top teams in the West. Countless examples of players that have done something like that. Caden from Operation Goldfish. That's a fair example. That's a fair example. Caden was just an absolute monster. But when that one player leaves, oftentimes we see teams just completely disband. I mean, that's a hole that just can't be filled. Oftentimes, you often just can't replace a player of that caliber, and if you do, they're not eligible for Low Ink, and you guys go to Low Ink and be like, "Hey, this guy, can we let this guy play?" And we're like, "No," and then you're like, "But he hasn't played the game in a month," and it's like, well, when he did play the game, he was pretty freaking good. So it's hard to reload at the lower level. And I think that kind of causes a lot of teams to disband, because you guys want to play in these tournaments, but it's hard to find people that are really good and eligible and are players that you've never heard of before. Z on my team is a great example. He didn't play the game since Splatoon 1 competitively. He's a really strong player, but just hadn't played Splatoon 2 competitively until he joined our team. So it was like a diamond in the rough that we basically found, and we could build the rest of our team around that. I guess the same with Tofu when we first added him, who celebrated his 2-year anniversary with our team yesterday. So there's it's hard to find good players to replenish. So I think that might be a big issue as far as teams disbanding in the lower level is concerned. Another thing is lack of growth. We got all these ranking systems out now, which I'm a big fan of. We got Low Ink has like a tier list now, and it's like making beta bracket is good, but if you're a team that usually makes alpha and you make beta, then that's bad, and you need to drop and not play in beta because it's embarrassing or something. So like teams that have that they can't consistently stay at the top of Low Ink, and they just keep like getting like leapfrogged by other teams, or they just consistently start trickling downward. We see a lot of those teams disband. And I understand that. That's, again, growing in the lower level is difficult. Just because of recruiting can be limited, growing can be extremely difficult, and it's and that can be discouraging. So we do see a lot of teams, I think, hit a wall and then realize for us to get over this wall takes more work than what we're willing to put into it. So therefore, let's just kind of disband and start all over. Uh, and there's an end for everybody. Eventually, everything is going to end. Oh, that's so deep. Is he talking about Splatoon or the entire world? Yes. Eventually, everything is going to end. But Splatoon teams are going to die at some point. The West Broadway Grillers, 2+ years. Destiny Troops, 2+ years. Splat Force, 20+ years. I think they've been around. Xanadu, I'm pretty sure Xanadu is going to be celebrating their 2-year anniversary at some point this year. I think I don't know when their official anniversary is, but they'll be their 2 years coming up at some point this year. Um, so and I'm sure there's several other teams around this skill level that have been around for a long time that I'm not mentioning, but eventually those teams are going to go away. I already know what my end game is. There is one particular situation that is going to happen at some point that I know is going to force me to retire. But until that happens, I'm going to play the snot out of competitive Splatoon. If everybody on my team quits today, I'm just gonna replace. I'm just gonna keep Destiny Troops, and I'm just gonna replace every single one of them. I hope that doesn't happen, but I'm not done with competitive. I'll tell you that right now. Um, it's a child, yeah. Possibly. I'm not joining Luau. I'd rather play against you guys than play with you guys. You guys push us to get better. Um, and but why do these teams, the Grillers, Destiny Troops, Xanadu, Splat Force, why have these teams been around for so long? Well, it's the fact that they have a core group of players that have been playing for such a long time with each other and have developed this bond and this loyalty trust that they have with each other. The Grillers, basically led by Devi and Stratagem or Jim. I actually roomed with these guys at Genesis 7. I got to see their personal friendship up close and with each other, and they got good fringe synergy, and then it's obvious why this team's been lasting for so long. Xanadu, good chunk of them are in chat right now. The Frosh, obviously, and I interviewed those guys a lot when they won Low Inc. And they talked about their team history. Some of them kind of knew each other beforehand and brought in some other people they knew growing up. So a strong core there at Xanadu. Splat Force, Todd, Avril, uh, Parias. I think those three have been a part of that team for 2 years alone with that core three players. And the surrounding cast around them has changed, and it always does. But when you have a core group of players that make up an identity of a team, it happens. Your team kind of sticks around for a little bit, for better or for worse. And honestly, I feel like a lot of lower level teams don't know how to build a team. Again, I kind of talked about the difficulties, the limitations that come with building a lower level team. But oftentimes, you will see free agents post an ad in the free agent server, and then 2 hours later, the announcement comes, "Whoa, this player just joined our team." It's like, what? You took 2 hours to figure out what team you're going to join? When Destiny Troops recruits, we might know who we want to add. We still try them out for like 2 to 3 weeks anyways. The reason that is because recruitments are an interview process that goes both ways, right? You're trying to determine if this player is a good fit for you, but at the same time, this player needs to determine if this team is a good fit for them. You don't get that in just one scrim. You don't. You need to scrim with this person several times. We'd like to do a tournament. We'd like to do a situation where we know we're going to get absolutely destroyed. And we want to see how that player reacts to that. We want to see if this player, if they're really skilled, are they still going to gel with us? Are they going to get our humor? Are they going to follow me on my Twitch page? You know, like these things are important. So when I see somebody post a free agent thing, and then they're immediately on a team, and then they leave that team in like a week, it's like, well, no crap, Sherlock. What do you think was going to happen? You have to actually take time to invest to figure out who you're adding and what team you're going on. And this is another thing that just kind of bothers me, is that new teams form seemingly out of nowhere. And immediately, day one, they make a Twitter. Here's our new team. Here's our new roster. Here's everything we're going to do. Here's our div estimate. Here's the link to our Discord, our public Discord. Why do you have a public Discord when your team has been in existence for 10 minutes? Why? And you know what's so awkward is all these teams, and there's too many to count, that have a Twitter page. And the only Twitter page, the only tweet they have on their Twitter is, here's our new team and here's our roster. And the second tweet, the only other tweet on this page is, we've decided to disband. We've all left on good terms. It's been a great ride. Great ride? What ride? Down the street to the gas station? Where did you guys even go? What did you guys even do? Why do you have a public Discord that we all now have to awkwardly leave? And it's like, I could go on a tangent for this forever. But it just, people just don't always get the sense of like what it is that you need to do to build a competitive team. Now, let's talk about something that I heard. Another person who occasionally does some podcasty kind of stuff on YouTube, Magic 8 Ball, kind of covered this topic of teams disbanding on a roundtable that he did on his Twitch thing. His Twitch is Magic8_ball, and the VOD of that is still up. Now, if you're listening to this on YouTube, and this is like the distant future that you're listening to this, that I don't know if Magic still saves those, so you might not still have access to that anymore. So I don't know, but basically, he makes a really good point. I'm encouraging you to go to watch that watch his VOD. But he does make a really good point. He talks about how once you get out of the lower level and you get into like +0, +2, +1 kind of skill range, most of those teams are not established veteran teams anymore that we see in the lower level. They're pickups. What we're seeing is more player-driven community than team-driven community that we see in lower levels. So it's more pickups. And it makes, when he said that, it clicked to him when he said it. But to me, it was like, yeah, he's right. That makes a lot of sense. Look at the teams that are winning like the IPL tournaments, Testing Ground, SOS. It's either Arctic Moon or it's a pickup team. Like every single time. I guess you could make the argument that FT win, when they've won, like back when SOS had like $100 prize every week, it was like 3 FT win players, but they went by like back pink. So like if you got 3 people on your team, I don't consider you a pickup. I consider you a team with a sub. But yeah, 2 players still kind of makes up a pickup team. But we see pickup teams basically win. Who won SOS this past week? It was Ascension, basically. Well, their team name was Woo. And once again, Ascension disbanded earlier that week. But Omega and Madness still played with a pickup with 2 other players and won SOS. So here you go. You got players that are leaving seemingly the competitive community. No, they're still playing in all of these tournaments. They're not going anywhere. They're just making pickup teams and still playing and still winning. I feel like somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the only pickup team to win a testing ground / SOS tournament was Arctic Moon, and Arctic Moon winning. A Solar might have won one. Solar might have won one, but it's also kind of difficult because I don't really know who's like a project in these tournaments and who's a pickup. K-Bot sometimes will tell me as I'm commentating, it's like, hey, these guys are a project, they're not a pickup team, and I'm like, well, I didn't know that, but how does this translate to the lower level? Right? Is this the future of what lower level is going to be? Are we going to see more pickup teams play in lower level from these teams that disband? We kind of already seen that, or at least seen the trend of that. When ITAP couldn't play because of their finals, we saw a few pickup teams play in low ink that did really well. First off, Nuts won the November beta brackets, and then Reindeer Sled went undefeated technically on the December Saturday Swiss of low ink, and then did decently well in the alpha bracket the Sunday the day after. So, but other than that, we don't really see pickup teams too often. There was a team in SAC called can't disband if there's no team kind of thing. I think that I'm sure there were other pickup teams as well, but for the most part, lower level is basically consistent name brand teams. Will that change in the future? I don't know. I feel like teams are more established at this point. Now, it depends. Magic kind of points out the issue with, well, not the issue, but the reason with higher level being mostly pickups is the +2 and +1 server. I don't think that launch point and midpoint are at launch point and midpoint helps you guys kind of get to know other players on other teams, but I don't think it's enough to us get to the point to where teams just aren't relevant anymore, and it's just all pickups, players playing with each other instead of actual teams. I hope it doesn't get to that. Is it arguable that you become a better player by doing mostly pickups? I don't know. Maybe it is, but me personally, I'm old school. I'm not old. There are people in chat older than me, so don't play that card. But I am kind of an old school mentality. I like teams. I like consistency. I like history. I like rivalries. I like it when I look at a match and I'm commentating a match and I know both teams and I know that there is history between these two teams, and I know that like they don't hate each other, but I know they don't want to lose to each other. That's the fun ones to watch. Those are the fun ones to talk about. And those are the fun ones. Those are the ones you guys like to watch. Destiny Troops and Xanadu played in round 5 on SAC. Xanadu is a rival of ours. Has been for a long time. We're 5-2 against them all time, but they won the last one. Nobody's counting or anything. But when I didn't watch it live, obviously, but I would assume that was one of the more better games that was on SAC. They beat us game 1 by 1 point. We KO'd them basically over the course of 5 minutes in the second game, and they beat us by 2 points in game 3. That's a competitive set against two teams that have a lot of history against each other, that are very familiar with each other, and we put on a really good performance. Does it suck that my team lost? Yes, but I'm still proud of the fact that we put out a product between us and them that is something other people can enjoy. And we don't get a lot of that, though. We don't get a lot of that because teams form and disband, and then like you have to go through like, well, this player was on this team like a year ago that was also a teammate with this guy who was on another team 2 months ago, but left that team and then joined this new one. So that's how these two players know each other. And that's what the storyline is here. And it's like, okay, I guess. And that's where pickup teams, that's what makes pickup teams less exciting for me, the viewer. But and And so I hope that we don't move over to this pickup scrim or pickup team kind of trend that Magic 8 Ball kind of alluded to. As far as the lower level is concerned, I like more established teams. And another thing with the high level is FT Win is an established team, and yeah, they do pickups, but they really, why do they keep winning everything? It's because they just stand alone at this point. Who is the number 2 team in the West right now? Like, well, okay, Europe doesn't always make the Western list because they don't play in a lot of tournaments that are not region locked. But who's the number 2 team in North America right now? Like, is somebody actively gunning? Okay, Starburst. Is Starburst actively gunning to knock off FT Win and take their crown? Or is Starburst more so just trying to defeat all the other teams that are trying to take their second place crown? That's the kind of question. And I feel like there's not enough. It's FT Win and Starburst is a good example, but we had Sayonara. They're gone. They're now in the pickups. They're now in the pickup portal. I guess Slaughterhouse is still around, but yeah. What was the other? Supernova. Supernova disbanded too, didn't they? There's so many S teams and so many star themed, space themed teams. Moon, Sun. I think there's a new team called Dark Sun or something like that. No, they're not a new team. Lunar Eclipse, I think, is a new team, which combines both suns and moon. So getting all of the space stuff in there. Supernova Prophecy. Yeah, there's this. So like there's not a lot of established teams at the top, but there's more so at the bottom. And I hope team trends come back at some point because, again, history. I like history between teams. It's more exciting, and I think it helps the whole community as a whole. In closing, though, before I go on too much of a rant, I am proud of the fact that I didn't see anybody freaking out about the community dying with all these teams disbanding. I bet somebody did, but if you did, you're a moron, and it's been pointed out several times. So, you people in chat, I have high hopes for you. Unless I don't. But I feel like you get the sense that the community dying isn't a result, isn't the takeaway from these teams disbanding. The community isn't carried by a handful of teams. It's not carried by a handful of players. And you know what's funny? All these teams that disband and all these players that leave, they always come back. In some shape or form. We, teams that come back. Revitalized disbanding. That sucked. It gave us Valhalla and Solution. Technical Machine disbanded last year, in the middle of last year. That was sad to see. That gave us Red Sun. What You Egg. Oh, bless your hearts, What You Egg. Sad to see you go, but that gave us Oblivion. Cosmic Inc. gave us Enigma. So many examples of teams that just, when they drop, they leave. I guess you could say Oblivion, or not Oblivion, Optimum, give us Helix. So many examples, but teams always come back. And you know what's fun? These players that say, I'm done, I'm not coming back, this community sucks, you're all pedophiles, I'm never coming back here. I've seen so many of those players that have said something along those lines on Twitter that are already back. When the North America Open thing happened, a lot of people came back. When Ludi just sent out a tweet that said soon, a lot of people came back. Ooh, woo, I'm looking for a team now. Who wants to help grind for Ludi? We don't even know if Ludi's coming back, technically. When SAC, I saw people yesterday, after they saw SAC, that was like, man, I got to get on a team now. I want to get back and part of this. So, like, the community dying. No, but people don't leave. I think I saw some people say they were done with Splatoon at the end of Tassel set. They'll be back. And if they don't, who cares? That doesn't end the community. And a lot of these people that stop playing the game come back as like TOs or or commentators or some sort of ambassador role to help grow the community as well. So it's not like teams disbanding means that we're all moving backwards as a community. No, it oftentimes what comes out of the ashes of a disbanded team is something even more beautiful and successful than what was already there. It sucks to see them go, but we know people aren't leaving altogether. And that concludes my rant. A very rant heavy episode of the Popcast. I don't think there is a tournament going on next weekend, so we'll probably do some more ranty stuff next week. But I'd rather do some more team interviews like I did yesterday or last week with the Deep Fried Octoling. So if you're a team that is interested on being a part of the Popcast, or anyone interested in being a part of the Popcast in general, feel free to reach out to me. Discord, Popgun, hashtag 5882. Twitter at Mr_Popgun, YouTube at 25 Popgun, Twitch at Popgun25. If you're looking for VODs of this, I keep them on Twitch for 14 days until they move over exclusively to YouTube. And I'll make sure to put the link to Ash Cup in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube live. Let's go to Fish. See what start to do. Also, a lot of people DM'd me last week some information about your team. I did read it. I didn't really respond to that. I'm sorry. I was kind of busy last week. We were getting ready for the weekend and a bunch of other stuff. So if you send me something, I promise you I read it. Unless you're someone who just sends me stuff like all the time and it's just, and I've left you on red. Okay. It's like, stop sending me stuff. If you send me like 30 messages and I don't respond, leave me alone. But if you send me like a long paragraph about your team, I promise you I read it, and I'll try to do a better job of just like saying, hey, thanks for giving that. I read it. I pay attention to that. And I do use that stuff for the Popcast in particular. So thank you for doing stuff like that. And I'll try to do a better job of responding to fan mail, I guess. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Wear a mask, and hey, try this. Try not raiding Capitol buildings. Try not breaking into federal buildings and see what kind of results of that. You might be pleasantly surprised that just try not doing that. Let's just see what happens. I don't know.